Hi, welcome back to my series on goal achievement. In this video, I'm going to be covering off the importance around A-level goals and what it takes to actually bring them to fruition. Because when you're setting a goal, an A-level goal, that is really true to your authentic self, you're not going to know how you're going to achieve it. The how is going to be this mystery. And it's within the how, or shall I say, it's within the mystery that you actually discover more of your gifts, more of your talents, and truly more of your capabilities. So you see, in the unconscious mind, we have two aspects to our mind. We have an unconscious, which a lot of people refer to as subconscious. But I like to refer to it as the unconscious because I think it's the part of us that we're unconscious of. I believe it's the part of us that we're unaware of. And then you have a conscious mind. Now the conscious mind is the thinking mind. It's the part of us that knows not to step out into oncoming traffic. It's the part of us that knows not to touch a hot stove. It's the part of us that knows how to get dressed and how to make coffee or whatever it is that we do in our life. So that's the thinking part of us. And if you're choosing goals that are within that thinking part of you, then those are going to be your B and C level goals because you already know it. You already know how you're going to do it. You already know that you can do it. But to truly get into a higher level of achievement, to truly step into peak performance in your career and your personal life, is to learn to challenge yourself, to set goals that really do cause you to get into your higher mind, and that is the unconscious. Now, the unconscious is also the domain of our emotions. So many times we'll set a goal, and then within the domain of those emotions might be a negative emotion like fear or doubt. There might also be a limiting belief that blocks you, that says you can't do it, that maybe is calibrating off of previous experience where you've tried but you didn't succeed, or you tried and it was costly. So let's talk a little bit about how that unconscious programming and conditioning can actually hinder you from moving forward. And I'm going to show you some ways that you can step beyond it. So we often in the personal development world will refer to a concept called the universe. And I like to draw parallels between the universe and the unconscious, because the universe is infinite, and so is our unconscious mind. Our capacity is far greater than you could ever use up in your lifetime. And so what we want to do is to begin to tap into some of that capacity and to use up as much of that capacity as possible. And that's what creates the fulfillment. That's what creates the excitement about life. So if you're setting A-level goals and they're not manifesting, what do you do about that? Well, first of all, let me say this, that any time that you set an A-level goal and you hit a wall, or you hit what we call a choke point and you're not able to move past it, then that usually is a revealing concept. It will reveal to you the limiting belief that you're holding on to. It will reveal to you the judgments that you've created. And I can actually teach you a tool where you can go into your unconscious at the root cause of the creation of that limiting belief or that judgment, and you can actually clear it and then replace it with something positive, so that when you think of the goal you want to achieve, and you actually then go for it and you actually make it happen. So within us we have what we call a paradigm or a belief system. And really all a paradigm or a belief system is it's a compilation of all the beliefs and all the judgments that we've accepted in our lifetime that we've learned from other people. So what we know about ourselves today is actually something that we learned from our parents, our coaches, our teachers, our mentors when we were younger, and who they believed themselves to be, that they passed down to us, was something they were taught by someone else. So the beauty of that is that whatever your limiting beliefs are, they're not yours. And it's just a program. It's a conditioning, like Pavlov's dog. We have experiences in life through our senses. We're human beings, so we experience life through our senses, through what we see, what we feel, what we hear, and what we say to ourselves. And when we have experiences that are positive in nature, that make us feel good about ourselves and make us feel good about our lives, then we create a positive anchor. And those positive anchors, when they're triggered, will create more of the same. Now, we could also have experiences through our senses that create a negative anchor. And that negative anchor may be fear, doubt, resentment, guilt, grief, and pretty much any limiting belief. And they actually create more of the same as well. They create blocks. They create energy blocks. They create thinking blocks. They create emotional blocks. And if you're having health challenges, they've created physical blocks. So, one of the gifts I have is when I work with a client or I work with a team and I go into a company, I can walk through the doors of a company and I can feel what's going on in terms of the paradigm within the organization before I ever meet with anyone. I can talk to someone on the phone and I can know exactly what your blocks are and where you learned it, what point in your timeline you picked it up, and how you're holding on to it, and in many cases where it's stored in your body. So one of the tools I like to teach is for you to be able to learn how to unclear some of those blocks. Now, in the experiment that Pavlov did with his dog, he postulated that when we have an experience and we connect it, so when we have an experience through our senses and then we connect it in another sense, we create a neurological pathway, we create a neurological anchor. When one of those senses, not all, but when one of those senses are then triggered, it causes this chain response so that your other senses are triggered as well. When you're experiencing success in your life, basically what you have is you have a series of anchors that are being fired that's causing a chain reaction in your senses to create more success. So that's a spiraling up. When you're having a difficult time in your career or your personal life, or challenging times, if you will, then essentially what's happened is some negative anchor has been triggered and it's spiraling down, and it's causing a diminishing return in emotion and thought that is taking you into experiencing more of that, which often isn't pleasant. So what we like to focus on in our A-level goals is a couple of things. We set the goal and we begin with the end in mind. One of the biggest mistakes that teams make, and whether you're working on this on your own as an entrepreneur, or you're part of a team, or you're in a company and the company's going through a process, or you're on the executive management team, whatever the case, this applies to you. When you are working on a particular goal and you set the A goal, what's going to happen is you're not going to know how to get there if it's an A goal. The biggest mistake that most organizations or people make is they look at where they are and they cannot figure out the next step, so therefore they don't go anywhere. We're going to reverse engineer it. We're going to begin with the end in mind. And after we come up with the end in mind and we get the clarity on that, then we're going to start to chunk it down backwards toward now. And it will actually flush out the whole process. You see, It's one of the techniques that we teach in NLP, is that you begin with your end in mind. You create a sensory-based anchor to that, and then you figure out, well, what's the last step? What's the last step that needs to happen before we get our goal? And we identify the last step, and that starts to create a chunking process. The chunking process enables us to get out of overwhelm, where we can begin to sort of wrap our thinking mind, our conscious mind, our intellect around the idea, and then it begins to demystify the A goal. So it's really that simple. Maybe not so easy if you don't know how, but at least I can break it down for you in a simplistic format that you can begin to understand that having these phenomenal goals, you don't have to sacrifice your goals. You don't have to give up your greatest potential. You don't have to compromise your greatness and set goals that are not worthy of you. You just need to have the tools to begin to take that goal through a process so your unconscious mind can start to fill in the blanks on the how. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you take an A goal and you begin to chunk it down. Now, please circle back with me to our next clip, because I'm going to cover choke points, and I'm going to go into more detail on choke points and how to leverage failure. Thank you for Google Plusing. Thank you for Facebooking. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Go to our website and fill in the contact form and get on our email list, and we'll share with you all of our great events that are coming up. I'm Deborah Peters, Neuroengineering Institute. Appreciate you so much. Many blessings. Bye.